Hi everyone, thank you for joining us, and we've got a deeply stimulating dialogue for you today with Andrew Donoho. He's directed films for musicians like Black, Khalid, Marshmello, Skrillex, Janelle, Monáe, Jaif, and 21 Pilots. He's won 2 VMAs for his collaboration with 21 Pilots on Heathens and Heavy Dirty Soul. I first met Andrew on the sets of a music video he was directing for Khalid, and ever since I have been in awe of the genius this man is. There are numerous and well-crafted layers to how he brings his visions to life, and today we will be discussing some of them. So before we forget what we are all here for as an artist, let's get to it. And yeah, you said you were experimenting with lucid dreaming, right?
Yeah, no, a couple of years ago I was really big on I had a dream journal, and I would clock my sleep cycle.
Oh, Jesus, man.
Yeah, there's a whole process you can look up. There's books on it, but you can teach yourself to lucid dream.
Right.
Lucid dream being a dream is where you know you're dreaming.
Yeah.
So you have a bit of control over it. But I don't do it much anymore because it's exhausting. Because like you wake up like 5 times throughout the night, and you write down your dream that you had each of those sleep cycles, and you do these exercises during the day. So it's fascinating, and everyone should give it a try and have at least a couple of lucid dreams. But I haven't done it in a minute because, you know, at a certain point I like the dream being on autopilot.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more relaxing to me.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's this friend of mine. She got really stuck in it. She couldn't stop. She started having nightmares because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense. Your body, like, you train yourself to wake up after each sleep cycle.
Right.
So yeah, the main reason I stopped was like, waking up at 5 or 6 times a night, especially when you're so busy during the day. Like if you have 12 hours a night, you can sleep, it's fine. But at a certain point, it's almost more work. And yeah, even though it's great and you get to control dreams and have a lot of fun, it's very kind of like, you know, there's a bit of almost like ego death to it. But the thing that makes it great normally is that you go to sleep and you have an experience that happens to you. Yeah. And at a certain point, I kind of miss that. So, letting dreams happen organically, there's value in both, for sure.
But it must have made you a lot more alert, though, right?
Yeah, no, it's funny to think about like, the things that clue us into reality. You know, a lot of lucid dreaming is about, during your waking hours, paying attention to the things that indicate you're in the real world.
Right.
And then seeing those same things, whether it be light switches working or the way certain paintings feel or the way text reads, all these indicators that are different in dreams. And it makes a lot of questions about like, why do we perceive reality the way we do? And it makes you think a lot about, even in your daily life, about, you know, why certain things are important and why the stuff around us is relevant, why it's not. It's a fun exercise for sure. I recommend it. It's just as a permanent lifestyle, it's a little bit extreme. You know?
I can imagine, dude. But would you say that in a way that every art that we create is just more like a dream?
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's every folklore, every, you know, myth, religion.
Utopia even.
Yeah, it all kind of goes back to these like really subtle human images and ideas and feelings we have in dreams. So yeah, for me it's dreams have always been super essential to making art, and especially music videos, which are kind of a dream in their own way. To kind of tap into those types of imagery and feelings and ideas that we experience, you know, whether it be as simple as like feeling like you're falling and having that abrasive catching yourself, to like the idea of floating and flying and how that can translate into a song. You know, all those I think are really delved into one another.
It must be really incredible to experience that within yourself, though.
Yeah, definitely. No, my first lucid dream ever was flying, and I mean, you can kind of like once you feel that and capture that, you realize that like that's an aspiration or feeling that everyone wants to have or has had in some kind of way or other, and translating, you know, feelings into imagery. That's kind of what your job is as a music video director. So, dreams are super important for that, because a lot of times what a dream is like very emotional or kind of big feelings boiled down into simple imagery.
Yeah, it's just basically kind of like your subconscious going through a catharsis.
Exactly. And you know, especially in like my more symbolic narratives, you know, dream symbols and, you know, dream imagery and kind of dream archetypes are things that I've studied a lot, and I try to put as much as I can into those videos, because you know, when when we recognize something as humans that everyone recognizes, it helps tell the story. And it helps kind of personify the song. And you know, I use a lot of animals in my videos. I use a lot of kind of like you know, character interactions and things that are based on dreams and based on dream symbols and mythologies, and that stuff I feel like really kind of adds another layer to filmmaking that I love. And obviously all my favorite filmmakers do the same thing. If you watch David Lynch, it's like, you know, suddenly it's like dream symbols times 30.
His name was coming to my head right now.
Yeah, but I mean, everything from like, you know, he's obviously on the extreme end, but they're even more subtle.
He talks about consciousness a lot, though. Yeah, he started with transcendental meditation. I mean, I'm not for it, but whatever works for you, right?
Right. But, there's a lot of film theory that gets into it. That you know, cinema in a way is kind of like, in the same way dreams are tapping into the human subconscious. Right. Cinema, you're trying to do the same thing. You know, even things as simple as like lens depth and trying to create a wider or narrow field of view. Right. You know, a lot of that to me feels the way like certain claustrophobic nightmares. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, once you're kind of in the world of filmmaking, you realize that you're perceiving those terrifying things in a different way than, you know, a big open field that you're running through. And it's most decisions you make as a director that are, you know, that second layer beyond just the script or the song. A lot of those things are like, how do we on a very subconscious and subtle level make the audience feel this way or interpret this?
How do we do it?
Yeah, how do we do it?
Yeah,
so
that's the question, right?
Yeah.
How do we do it? Because
it's true.
The only thing that like it's making me so curious right now, like listening to you about subconsciousness, dreaming and translating all onto that film, and you know, making music videos out of it, writing features out of it, you know, experimenting with features out of it. How do you translate that? What is that process like? Because for me, if I think about it, it's just so incredible, man, to go through that entire process of having so many visuals and so many of these elements to work with, and then making a sense of it. Yeah. Because I'm sure that you can't just make sense of it right away.
True. Yeah. And I think you and I have talked about this, but it's like you have to have the ability to kind of like flip a switch in your brain between like the logical and the abstract. And you know, I always like to start in a place where like anything is possible. You know, you go full abstraction. It's all about feelings, and you know, and then you start to kind of dial it into reality, which is okay. Well, we have that feeling. What color feels that way? You know, what framing feels that way? You know, how wide do we want to be for that? And then you dial it even further and further and further into the right-brained kind of roadmap mentality, which is here's our storyboard. Here's what's happening this 5 seconds. So. Cinema has a duality like that. Like you have to have the free-flowing kind of emotions and feelings that, you know, a painter would feel. But at the same time, you have to be able to dial it into like a schedule and logistics and reality. And that duality is what makes cinema really interesting to me. And it's probably the only art form that really goes as extensively into like every other aspect of the subconscious and the direct storytelling. And this is the layer everyone perceives, and this is the layer that only a few people will get, and this is the subconscious feeling, and this is the emotions of the character on screen, and you know, dealing with all those things at once. For me, no other art form kind of does that. You know,
it's funny to me that, you know, when we're talking about it and we're breaking things down, it all feels like such a great duality. But when we watch films, when we go to watch films, it's such a unifying experience. Right. And I totally understand it that, you know, most of the people, they don't even get the deeper meanings of a film. You know, sometimes we just go for a film just because we want to have a good time, or we like the actors or something like that.
Right.
We so barely go to the movies for the directors, man. Unless it's a film festival, then everyone's gonna be there for the directors.
Totally.
Man.
But I mean, that's what I think makes the difference between like something really magical and beautiful in a movie versus something that's just an experience, is that, you know, when you have a director that is thinking on all million levels at once, which is like the perspective of the audience, perspective of the characters, you know, everything down to the, you know, Kubrick style, where it's like every piece of the frame has a meaning. That's really magical to me, and that's like kind of that holy grail of filmmaking, where it's like you want to get to a point where, you know, everything is intentional and, you know, supposed to be a certain way, and at the same time, it's all based on feelings and instinct. And like a subconscious universal feeling between humans. That's what separates, you know, the great directors from the the okay directors.
Yeah,
is
for sure.
those extra layers.
So do you want for when it comes to your work, do you want every frame to have a meaning?
Yeah,
Okay with,
I think
you're okay with a few inserts every once in a while?
Oh, I mean, inserts are fine. It's like I said, it's a fine line. It's juggling because at a certain point, like reality does kick in. And unless you have $800 million and the ability to reshoot things dozens of times, like you have to make certain decisions based on logic.
Yeah.
So it's a very practical art form. But I do want to get to a point eventually where even if there is a framing or a color palette or an aesthetic or a performance that is asking questions, that I know that going in. That it's even if I know that there's not a direct answer or direct meaning, that the intended use of that frame is something we've thought about beforehand. You know?
For some reason we keep coming back to color, and you showed me that palette right when we saw each other today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about color, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because color is so. It's one of the most substantial things in film.
Yeah, we were talking about dreams. Why does red mean angry? Why does
it's on the same lines. It works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, colors. It's like such an abstract thing, but at the same time, it being so abstract and flexible, people still respond like a 6-year-old that has never thought about it. What a movie means in their life. Like they'll know red's angry, and that like a teal is like relaxing, and that. Yellow is kind of like vulnerable. Like they'll have these inclinations, even though there's been no study or no kind of like no one's told them that.
Yeah.
So to me, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And for me,
it's so deeply conditioned, though.
Yes.
How we interact with colors. It's like it goes so way back.
Mm-hmm.
That it's.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I've always been obsessed with the color green. I love teals, and I love putting green in my highlights and shadows. Yeah, I learned recently that the reason I like it, I think, is because humans actually perceive more shades of green than any other color. Right, and it goes back to predators. It goes back, I learned this in the show Fargo, actually. I looked it up, though, it's true. Because we're from jungles and areas where we have to spot predators through foliage, spot dangers.
Yeah.
Our eyes have adapted to feeling out a million different shades of green, more so than any other color. So,
it's funny because I've just started using green.
Yeah, dude, it's
only been a week that I've been using green more in my pictures.
Yeah, if you we have a mutual friend, Ben Cutchins.
Yes.
He is like the king of green.
Yeah, so much, dude.
It's wild. He actually, and I thought I liked green, but when we got into the color session on that one, he was going heavier than I ever wanted to. But I was like, what, this is kind of cool. I like it. And I think it's funny the way that we can talk about a shade or a color and the way we like it or don't. But another fascinating thing is the way that different societies perceive color. Different cultures in different regions actually are able to see colors differently. What a certain tribe in Africa will see as blue will be gray to people who live in the mountains in South China. It's like so interesting to me that every culture and every like society has had different upbringings relating to color. Yeah. So in a way, the colors you like and the choices, it's kind of a roadmap to how you grew up and where you're at. And I don't know, there's just so much depth, so much interesting, and, subconscious detail when you talk about it. But I like green.
Yeah, but how do you work with those limitations of like people seeing colors differently and sometimes not seeing them at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's when I make a movie or a short or a music video, I'm trying to show the world the way I see it and through the things I like. You have those universal rules, which is, red means this, blue means this. But then for me, it's like I love really kind of smoky, dim shadows. I like the world to feel kind of like it's been. We talked about this too. Like it's seen through like almost like through a glass or through a lens that's smokier and more dim and like a dirty window or something like that. Because when you have that kind of shadow detail and those muted highlights, to me, it always makes me pay more attention, and it makes it feel more like something that you're experiencing as a memory, more so than something that's right here, right now. And then I've just always been drawn to more cold greens. Right. I don't know why, but if you look at the color palettes of all my videos, I'll reuse the same shade of teal, and it's for some reason it's something I really like. All my reds.
What is it?
Yeah, say again?
Is it more immersive?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's you know, at a certain point, it's like I'm just trying to create what I like, and then certain people respond to it, and certain don't. But yeah, I think that.
But for you, that's more immersive.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, there are certain DPs and colorists and cinematographers that are on the exact same wavelength as me, and those images they make are ones that make me feel things just from the moment I see them. You know, and for me also, I love color complexity. I try to avoid going fully saturated bright colors all the time because, you know, if you're doing that, you have 5 colors to work with. Whereas if you're slightly dimmer and more desaturated, you have millions to work with. You know, so creating complexity in the image, same as a memory. Like when you remember something right now, whether it's, you know, a childhood memory or just what you had for breakfast, you're picturing it in a way that's different than it happened.
For sure.
And for me, I like to kind of channel what a memory feels like to me into an image on screen. It's more immersive.
I think the older the memory is, the more desaturated it is.
Yeah, I think so. Or the more like warped it gets, or the more the further from reality it becomes. But I have memories of like, you know, like super early memories at beaches and things that are fuzzy and tan, and there's no way that's the way the world looked, but like I picture it in like a glowy kind of magical way that wasn't.
And then you match it with what you're going to create.
Exactly. So I mean, that's not always the process, but that's how I like it.
No,
you
that's in a layman's terms.
Yeah.
In a way. When was the last time you used anamorphic lenses?
I use anamorphic lenses on most videos because for me it's like you know, it changes the field of view in one way. That feels more natural. It brings the background closer. It lets you shoot on kind of like wider lenses, have an even wider field of view, and it feels more human. But then at the same time, it introduces kind of that dreamlike veil where everything's a little bit softer, everything's a bit glowier, everything has, you know, light sources have more of a flare. The world has more of a smear, kind of impressionistic, painterly feel to it that to me feels more like a memory. And I love that. So yeah, lensing is important, man. And you know, a lot of directors don't care, but yeah, for me it's me and the DP, like, you know, we'll talk for hours about why we choose which lenses and what we're trying to portray, and you know, I get obsessed with it. I love it, and I think that that the veil we create is super important.
Just kind of like
and you know, it helps you tell the story through the eyes of a character. You know, it's like, sure, if you have a character who's like super right brained and like everything's very logical and precise and normal, you know, you shoot on a cleaner perspective, shoot at something that it feels more natural. But then, you know, if you have a character where, you know, the world is a bit more obscure and they're not quite understood, and you know, things are a little bit more all over the place, you're able to portray that visually with your lens choices, which I like.
If there's chaos in the person's head, it's different. If it's like, if they're calm, quiet, it's going to be a beautiful sunset, they're sitting by the beach or something like that, right?
Exactly. So yeah, it's for me, it's just like one more cool opportunity to kind of like dive into that subconscious we're talking about, and then play with not only the subconscious of the audience, but take the subconscious of the character or the perspective of the video and then show that to the audience. You know?
And how do you ever think that your subconsciousness needs kind of a catharsis for its own? I mean, not exactly about dreaming, not exactly about creating, but do you ever feel like your subconsciousness is getting too burdened up?
Too burdened in the way we present it?
No, I mean, in a way you're experiencing you're experiencing your life, because sometimes we suppress so much. Right. I mean, being around our family, being around our friends, living in the society, we have to suppress. Right. And it's kind of like, I mean, if you're living among like really meditative people, we may not have to, but we may still end up doing it because that's what we're just mechanically used to. Right.
Well, isn't that why art is so wonderful? It's because you're able to release all that.
Release all that. But at the same time, I feel that sometimes when you use art to kind of a medium for that release, art can become neurotic.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's why it's important to have art for yourself and then art for other people. You know, I take a lot of pictures and do a lot of videos and things that, you know, I don't show people, I don't post, and that's important to me because that's kind of like that's meditating on the subconscious in a way that kind of is refueling and, you know, allowing you to have energy that you get back.
Yeah.
Whereas, there are definitely times I've burnt out where, I try to write so many ideas and do so many different videos and put so much into it that it feels like I'm drained,
Right. Yeah.
So, art, just like breathing, it's an in and an out, and you got to balance it.
In and out, yeah, man, for sure. And how? So when you said that there were like a few things that you did and you were drained out by the end of it, was it because of you were like taking it a bit more personally, or were you more attached to the idea that you were working on, or was it just the team?
Yeah, I mean, it can be all those things. I think for me, the most draining is when you go in trying to achieve something, and like you have a really strong vision and idea, and you invest yourself in that, you invest your time in that, and then circumstance and reality don't let you get there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And every project has that to an extent, but there are some where, your rocket blows up before it even leaves the launch pad. And and then filmmaking, it's there's a great quote which is like, it's just as hard to make a bad movie as it is a good movie. It takes the same amount of effort. So that's the most draining thing is when you're in the process, you had an expectation and a hope, and then you realize you can't get there, but you're stuck. You have to finish it. You have to keep making it. You have to see it through. Not only because, you want to make money, but also because you have a responsibility because you're not the only artist working on something, It's a collaborative effort.
I respect that, man,
Yeah, and, you can't just say, oh, this isn't what I want, so I quit, fuck this job.
Yeah.
Because, you have dozens of other people that are working on it and invested in it too, and you have a responsibility to them.
And then sometimes you're working on ideas which are like so socially important.
Yeah.
Right. That you just can't, even if it's not working really well, but it's just like after you've invested yourself in the dialogue, you can't just walk away from it, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I
because you're doing a couple of those things now.
Yeah, no, I'm pitching on a video right now that I might end up not doing, and I might end up not even delivering the treatment because it's about gun violence, and it's a super tricky subject to deal with because I want to present an idea that isn't cheesy and doesn't take for granted what we're talking about, and is serious about it, but at the same time, like, it's such a touchy subject, and you have videos like This Is America that do it perfectly and really deal with it, but sometimes it's hard to put all those pieces together and feel like you're going to deliver something that has the message and will keep the audience's attention and will say what you want to say, but it still is your own. I don't know. It can be really difficult to kind of balance all that. Yeah,
for sure. You're right, man. It's all about the balance. But how do you find your balance? Not just as an artist, but how do you find your balance?
As a human?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, as you probably know, there's a lot of depression and divorce and struggle and mental illness in this industry because it's super hard to balance. For me, it's like I wouldn't say I balance it perfectly yet. I think there are definitely.
Are you coming close though?
I try. Yeah, I think that luckily, when you get to a point where you're able to say no to certain projects and you're able to live comfortably and you're able to do the work that will be good, that's when you're able to actually implement balance. It's a lot harder when you feel forced to take every job or you feel forced to do things you're not passionate about. But yeah, I think it's just going into every job trying to make it the best you can, while also being a realist and knowing that you're never going to think everything is perfect. If you're able to kind of keep a mindset going in that doing your best in the process is as important as the end result, I think it's going to end up being a better product. And when it's only 90% of what you wanted it to be, you're not going to be as devastated because you're still taking it as learning experience. Yeah. So it's perspective.
Yeah, it is perspective. What was it like for you when you were like being forced to? I mean, not being forced to, but when you had to take all of the jobs that you were getting.
Yeah, I mean,
what was it like all of those years?
It was definitely. I dealt with depression. I dealt with a lot of anxieties. Any filmmakers out there that are still dealing with it, I'm sure it can be an issue, but it sucks, man, because art...
The anxiety is a bitch.
Yeah, art and money don't go well together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard to make those two things work. And filmmaking is one of the only art forms where, like, you can't just do it. You can to an extent. Sure, you can make a cell phone video and you can practice, but, like, if your desire is to make a spaceship movie, you can't just make a spaceship movie.
No,
you know,
need so much money for that shit.
Right. And yeah, it can be.
It's just like I mean, if you think about singing by ourselves or creating a painting,
yeah,
it's so easy.
Right.
You're so free.
Yeah, it's easy in that like you can just make whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean there is a limitation of the size of the canvas, but you can fully express yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And then sure, if it's a good painting, if somebody wants to buy it, you can get money out of it. Right. But when I look at filmmaking, it's such a global phenomenon, and then it's so dependent on other people.
Yeah. And then beyond that, you know, I think people look at paintings with like a sense of open-mindedness, whereas we've been conditioned to say like, oh, you know, we've seen these movies and these television shows and everyone spends every night on Netflix, that if you don't hit near perfection, people will automatically write it off as terrible. You know what I mean? It's like such a hard balance where you can be a painter and you can be learning, you can be trying stuff out, and people will still see the vision and the theme and they'll like it. Whereas filmmaking, you have one terrible scene, one terrible acting, you know, one terrible line of dialogue, and people will write it off, and suddenly it's not worth watching anymore.
Yeah, you know? And people are so quick to write it off. Man. Yeah,
it's hard, and I mean that again goes back.
That's just anxiety straight up.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like I said, like I'm still learning to balance it, and I feel for those that are still kind of getting their career off the ground. But even now that I can say yes and no to things, I'm getting into features. It's still a constant battle to kind of keep perspective and view things as like not every job needs to be my opus that's like the best thing I've ever made, and understand that there are limitations and that everything's a learning experience. It's easier now for me, but when you first start and you know you have clients that you have to adhere to, and you have collaborators that don't see things the way you see it, it's hard.
Yeah. Well, how would you walk? Let's say that I'm trying to get my career off the ground as a director, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so fucking anxious, man. You know, I'm so fucking anxious. I'm not mocking it. No way. Yeah. I'm just putting myself in that situation, right? For the sake of the dialogue. How do you guide me through it?
I mean, Aronofsky has a wonderful quote. He was talking about like when he was at that stage, and he was like, "Just remember, it will get better."
Right.
And I mean, you just have to keep that in mind. If you do something long enough, you know, even if you're not making what you want to make, you at least will start to have more freedom and flexibility. So there's that, which is knowing it will get better. You know, there's always making something for yourself. You know, when I first started, like I started doing visual effects at the same time I was doing videography, and that can be draining too because you're working for other people that you usually disagree with. And yeah, it's something where like, you know, every job that takes it out of you, like make time to make your own art. Even if it's photography. For me, like that's super important. And
I love your pictures, man. I love your pictures.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I shouldn't say pictures. Fuck. I love your photographs.
Thanks, dude. Photographs for me, it's like it's a breath of fresh air. You know, it's like, you know, I'll make a music video and some of them don't go great, and you know, I'll spend 2 months working on something that ends up being something I'm not proud of, and the ability just to go out at sunset and take a photo, and that's your frame, and you take it home and you can play with the grade. You don't have to publish it. You can keep it for yourself. There's a magic in that, and you know, whether it be photographs or making.
It's like painting, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Even if it's making your own short film, it's having something that you have ownership over. It's super good for your mental health. You know, like
it's really satisfying.
I know a lot of filmmakers that you know they feel like they need to keep grinding, and that if they don't take every single client video, that they'll go broke. But it's like, you know, it's worth budgeting your time and your money to make room to do your own art. And you know, I'm sure you know this, but even outside of art, there's things you should make time for that are mentally healthy, whether that be meditation or yoga. You just gotta be able to step out of it and say like,
even just going out for a walk with someone you love, man. I mean, that's what I did last night, right? But I still ended up drinking more, which I'm not happy about right now.
It's all right. You got a day off now.
Yeah, I was so wrecked yesterday morning. Right? I was like, dude, I mean, this is the first day. You know, can't be feeling this shit. You know, like because no energy, no water, nothing.
Right.
So I was like, I ended up messaging this friend of mine. And I was like, do you mind taking a walk right now? And we just kept walking around Silver Lake for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it was such a and I was like, all right now, best year I ever had. Best New Year's I ever had.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was just walking around. It was so healthy, so satisfying.
Yeah, no, I go for drives.
Yeah.
It's super helpful.
I don't like driving so much.
Yeah?
It
depends on where you do it.
I don't know. It's just like, even when I'm back in India, I drive like 3 times a month.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends,
I like bikes more so.
Bikes are great.
Yeah.
Driving, I don't know, driving for me is super magical.
Yeah.
We were talking about Nightcrawler earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's something about...
I'm down for that. Like, what I do is, if I can drive a friend's car because I don't have a car here, if I can have a friend of mine to drive with me, then I would drive for sure.
Yeah.
Right? But there have been so many nights ever since I've been in LA that after midnight, up until like 5 a.m., I'm just out.
Yeah.
I just drive around or I walk around, be whatever it is, and I'm just taking pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta make room for that.
And listening, and sometimes I listen to some really, really nocturnal piano. And just vibing, dude.
Yeah.
Just
That's a
vibing,
great way to do it, man. It's a mental meditation. It's like anything to kind of get you out of your head. It's really easy to get into a routine where you're working and then, to turn your brain off, you'll just turn on the TV, or you'll go home and go to bed early, or you go out with friends, and that's great. But yeah, I think you've got to make room for that kind of like meditative experience, or especially as an artist,
especially as an artist. Yeah, not many people understand this, man.
Yeah, because if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, if you have a day job, yes, your time alone is you get out and you have your work life and your real life.
Yeah, you can easily switch it off.
Yeah, but as an artist, or as if your career is in the arts,
man.
Yeah, it's a job that is your life.
Yeah, it's non-stop.
Yeah, and
you never stop being inspired. You never stop working on ideas. You never stop developing ideas.
Right.
And yeah, but since we're talking about it, what do you do when you find yourself in that loop or that trap where you just like can't stop developing ideas in your head?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. It's like I honestly, I'm guilty of it now, where it just happened to me. It's like over the holidays, I had like a bunch of different treatments I was working on for videos, and developing a feature and all this stuff, and yeah, you have to honestly make a choice that this 4 hours is separate.
Right.
It's important to do that, because if you don't, it's like you can't turn your mind off.
Right.
It's like you're awake and you're working, and
kind of just create a schedule for it. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're able to, if you're able to actually say like these 3 hours or this day or this weekend, like this is the time that is my mental vacation,
right?
And you make that choice,
you
gotta do it, because it's super easy to fall into a routine where you just forget about it. And even when you're at home on your couch, you're thinking about things, you're taking calls, you're taking emails. Yeah, just turn your phone off. Turn your phone off and go for a walk, and make that your time, and really kind of choose a space that is separate. Because if you're not intentional about it, you're never going to turn your brain off. You're never going to step out of it. And
it's so easy to happen, man.
Yeah.
It amazes. It's literally painful for me that how so many artists don't notice it at all. They don't recognize it.
Oh yeah.
They just keep burning themselves out.
In the film industry especially, it's a job where it can become like a 24-hour day, 7 days a week, where it's like these 5 days you're on set, then you're developing for the next one. And, doing freelance especially, you always have to be finishing a job while you're shooting one, while you're prepping for another. Yeah. And you kind of get into, that crazy frenetic mind space where, you got to remember, if you say no to a job, it's okay. If it's not going to be your last one. If you decide that, that this week is going to be about yourself and not about writing, your ideas aren't going to go away. You're not going to...
That's what they need to understand.
Yeah, it's
everyone needs to understand that.
Because I've felt that pressure before, where it's like, if I don't say yes to every video, what if that's my last one? What if what if that momentum's going to disappear? What if I won't get jobs again? And it's not the way it works.
Yeah.
If you're in this, you're going to keep going, just keep doing it, but taking pauses along the way is not going to affect anything except for make you feel better about life.
Yeah, for sure. Amen, brother.
Yeah.
With that, let's talk a little bit about how you channeling your influences. Like we talked about Lynch, we talked about Kubrick, and other filmmakers you love, and how you channelize what you have learned or seen from their work.
Yeah, I mean, music videos are great because they're kind of a ground for experimentation. You get to try a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
More so than a film where, you know, you have 90 minutes to tell a very concrete story. You can kind of have a different perspective in every video to an extent.
Yeah, sure.
So it's been awesome because, you know, you just watched a video I did for Jaif. Called
incredible.
Yeah, called Lose My Mind, and we approached the filmmaking aspect of it as if we were shooting it in the 80s. Everything was practical. Yeah. Everything was on set. You know, everything was, you know, if it was stars in the background, it was rear projected. It wasn't green screen. All the screens played stuff for real. They weren't composites. And getting to that mindset of working, I got to look at, like, let's look at the original Alien movie. Let's look at these other ways to do it. So, in terms of channeling my influences, I think that music videos kind of let you get into their headspace, and you can try things more directly. We did a Spike Lee dolly shot, which if I was making a feature today, I probably wouldn't do. But it made sense in this story, in this context. Yeah. So I did it, and I learned it, and I kind of felt how it worked, and then I could decide, is that something that's going to be in my tool belt permanently or not, you know? Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like, I guess to answer your question, the way I channel them is I try to put myself in their shoes, and I try to explore what brought them to the directors there today, and I get to take those experiences and kind of build a rhetoric for what I like and what is my style and what I think is great, so that I can have my own unique voice that still gets to draw from these dozens of other people that I adore, you know?
Yeah. And with that, let's, you know, the other video that you showed me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a Caleb Staff trapped.
Yeah, that performance was so intense, right? How do you, like, I know you told me earlier that you kind of like took a program, like you took a program for acting.
Yeah, I've taken some acting classes and read some books.
Yeah. How does that, like, is it just, does that only help you in terms of creating a relationship with the actor, or is there more to it?
I think a lot of it is creating a space where they can act. You know, I think that, you know, there's a lot of directors that think it's as simple as, like, tell them be sad and stand here and they'll do it. And you really got to work up to it. Caleb, you know, that was his first music video. And we did a rehearsal, and his feet were, like, stuck to the ground. He was looking straight into the lens, and it wasn't working. It felt very stale. It felt like he was just delivering it. And yeah, we worked through some exercises. And, you know, we were talking about, like, if he was an animal, or if we were trying to personify the feeling of what this should be, what it would be like. And it's like, you know, we want to feel like it's almost like a chained dog that wants to escape. So, you know, we built kind of a base for that. We did some rehearsals that didn't have the camera. I opened up the floor. I gave him points of interest. And yeah, you kind of get to add layers and build onto the scene in a way that makes it feel organic for them, so that he know what I'm looking for and gives him room to explore. I didn't want to say be angry and intense, because the moment you give a result direction like that, they'll be in their heads about it. It'll be false, it'll be fake, but, you know, we try to channel certain ideas in certain moments, and, you know, he's a non-actor, he's a performer, and it works. And that's the greatest thing about, you know, if you take a Meisner class, or if you take any kind of sense memory thing, they're tools that allow you to communicate to non-actors just as well as trained actors, you know. Some of it is channeling old experiences, and it could be as simple as breathing exercises, or it can be as simple as things that break them out of their head and get them into a more organic, free-flowing way. So, yeah, thank God for acting classes. Thank God for Meisner. Even though, you know, my sets aren't like a traditional Meisner directing situation, the tools that I've gotten from those kind of books and classes have helped me a whole lot. Because, it's much simpler and cleaner, too. If you say, you know, if you give them an action instead of a feeling, and then let them explore that, they'll make discoveries, and you'll make discoveries while that's happening that are more than just if they had been there and they were crying, you know? Because if you say, stand here, cry, then...
That's rewarding, dude.
Yeah, it's super helpful. And, you know, honestly, that was, like, for the longest time, like, one of the weakest areas of filmmaking for me was, you know, directing actors or directing performers. And the more I've tried to delve into it and explore it, and kind of let a little bit of my cinematography slide in order to accommodate acting, or, you know, even just knowing how to rehearse properly or warm up, like that stuff is saved videos for me and made something that was kind of stale and very average into something that feels more, you know, extreme and interesting and visceral, you know?
Right. And what about like if you're on set and your camera breaks?
That happened to me. You gotta get creative. The video I did with Ben Cutchins, you did for Khalid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were on set and
That's
our camera broke for 2 hours. Yeah, I mean it's you got to think on your feet. You know, it's a situation where music videos, especially, like you don't get.
You guys had only so much time to shoot.
Yeah, well, it was wild. So you know, on the fly, we thought about like what would be cool performance, and we kind of landed on this idea where it's like, well, we can do something handheld or static with a second camera body while that other one's broken.
Yeah.
We can't use our crane. The crane was what was broken. That was the issue. So you got to keep a level head. You got to know that you got to trust your future self to find a way to make it work. And then you just got to feel like what's going to feel right. You know, we're losing these 10 shots that were very, you know, reliant on the second camera that was on the crane. Crane's broken now. What do we do? And, you know, we found some simple, fun light solutions that still felt the same way the song felt. We put them on top of the car, and the scene we ended up on is him laying on the back of the hood.
Thing that was going.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So, like, you know, that wasn't in there originally, and we decided that, you know, while our crane was broken and we couldn't shoot our main stuff, let's add a piece that may not make the cut and just do what feels right. And what felt right for me was like, you know, we want to make something that has the light moving at the same speed as the song. We want to make the colors and the palette fit the same as him, and I want to see him from overhead and create a different perspective that kind of breaks away from the video. And yeah, we landed on that scene. So think on your feet, have backup plans.
Yeah, I mean, you were really chill for for someone whose crane is not working, man.
Yeah.
It was really fun to watch you direct it. It was so chill.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be. I learned very quickly that getting stressed and anxious, it only hurts the process. You know, it's especially when you're directing a performer, is they very much pick up on the way you feel and the way you talk to them. And you know, if you're stressed and you're frenetic and you're breaking point, you know, they're going to feel that way too, and it's going to create bad morale, and you're going to make worse art. So yeah, and a lot of it is just like, I've had worse experiences. It's like you kind of build a tolerance where when a certain number of videos fall apart, you get to a point where, it's just a crane, 2 hours, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out,
and yeah, it's, again, another magical thing about music videos is that you get a little bit of flexibility with continuity. As long as you create a consistent feeling, a consistent vibe, and a consistent, you know, characterization of the performer, it's like you can get away with with
that video for sure.
Yeah. So it worked out.
It worked out pretty good. I think it has like how many views does it?
It hit 100 million today.
Shit.
So yeah,
that's good. That's good.
it's doing okay.
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not 1.5 billion, but it's 100 million.
It's true.
It's getting there. Yes.
Yeah. You know, view counts are cool. It's one of those things also where like when you first get into it, you're really stoked on the view count, but then you realize like.
What was it? What was the name of the song with 1.5 billion?
We did Heathens for 21 Pilots. Has almost 1.5 billion views.
Yeah.
So yeah, super surreal. Like to have an idea that like a solid percentage of the population has seen the video.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of my favorite videos don't have high view counts, you know, and some of my favorite videos, you know, it's weird to monitor the views, and it's easy. It's another trap. It's if you're worried about the view count too much, or you're overly hopeful. You know, you can let that make you disappointed in things you should be stoked about. And then the reverse is true too, where if you think your video is good just because it has a lot of views, you're going to start making terrible videos.
Oh, I see. That's what's happening to Instagram photographers these days.
Yeah.
They get like 10,000 likes and they keep creating the same shit.
Yeah. It's dangerous, man.
Same shit, dude. And yeah, like because I feature a lot of people on Portbox Instagram, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the submissions now they're starting to look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's why I don't feature so many people anymore, because most of the submissions I get, they're just literally the same shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sorry I'm calling it shit, but some of it is really shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem. I mean,
it is.
Good artists too. Yeah, it's a problem, man. There can be really, really good artists.
Yeah.
That have huge potential, and I'm guilty of this too, that will get stuck into doing one thing because they get feedback that they shouldn't listen to, or feedback they should listen to that they don't.
Yeah.
A lot of that goes back to like surrounding yourself with collaborators and crew that are honest with you, that help you grow, and trying to reduce your ego as much as you can. You know.
Yeah. Instagram is kind of like building. It's kind of giving people that ego so much these days, man. And I've realized that Instagram is literally the last place you should go for feedback. Yeah,
it's very much double-edged sword, you know, because there's the great part, which is like undiscovered photographers like 20 years ago that would take them 30 years of shooting in order to get into a magazine.
Yeah.
Now can have a platform to show their art.
Yeah.
But then, the reverse is true too, where it's like you have people that doing the same thing, very bland, very like unintentional, very kind of like doesn't have any heart, and because they've built an audience and they're you know trying to play for just one type of person, they get a big following, and they think that there's no more need to grow, no more need to change things up. They can just do that one thing.
Yeah, I think that's when people just miss out on the idea of what art's supposed to be.
Yeah, totally. It's
because if you minus crowd, there is no art.
If you minus crowd, you said?
Growth.
Oh, growth. Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, art could still exist without crowd, but nobody would be appreciating it.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of have that interaction with the audience. But it's, internet in general, man. You know, I wouldn't have the momentum I have now without it. Yeah. You know, and...
No, same.
But it's such a double-edged sword, too. Yeah, because it's easy to get in your head. It's easy to... You know, sometimes I'll do a video and I won't know if it's good or bad because it feels like all the feedback I get is positive, even though I know there are flaws and people aren't pointing out those flaws. It would be so easy to get into a head space of like, let's just do that again.
Genius, man.
Yeah. Your ego can just go, you know, go way left field.
And dude, I have seen that happen. There's such incredible artists, right? Like some really, really young people. Just coming along, and they were creating some beautiful stuff, like really individualistic stuff, and I was like, that's like it's gonna be a fun time watching their journey, following their journey along, right? And just like they get a few thousand followers, and within a couple of months, the shit changes. Yeah, like 360, man. It's just, I'm like, damn, dude, you guys just missed out on something so potent that you were carrying within you, and you just kind of threw it away for just, let's say, a few followers.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. You see people that they feel like they need to bend into advertisers and things too, and it's like, it's a very fine line, very fragile situation. And I try to do the best I can, like monitor my growth and make sure I'm trying to do original stuff, but it can be hard, you know.
Because there's so much content today.
Totally. That's the thing is also, it's like, it's a temptation because, you know, I'll do a video that's successful and then I'll have like 4 or 5 other artists hit me up and they'll want almost the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And it would be so easy to be like, cool, I can make a couple grand, I can just do something I already know how to do, and then I can move on. Yeah. And if you give into that, you know, it's dangerous territory.
Yeah. With that, alright, so... This usually is my last question. I mean, we can continue talking, but I don't want you to be tired or anything. Let's just, let's talk about either your favorite poems or your favorite songs.
Favorite poems or favorite songs?
Yeah. I mean, you work on music videos. You should have a
No, I have some songs. I'm trying to think. The thing about a favorite song or a favorite poem is like, when you give the answer to that question, you're trying to make a statement about why or what you could say. Because there's a million things.
No, it's just like, so when I'm asking this question, if you have a favorite poem, you don't need to explain why.
Okay. I would say among my favorite songs, and we'll say just for the sake of clarity that my favorite song changes on a day-to-day basis. But
Got it.
I think that Pyramid Song from Radiohead has always been like a really profound thing to me, because Radiohead has a very kind of abstract and interesting way of presenting music, and for whatever reason that song has just always stuck around for me. And that was like, I remember, because we're talking about dreaming, this comes to mind, is like that was always a song that it felt like a dream to me, and it's a good one. Poems, I guess I could give you an answer for that too, but That's a tough one. You know what sucks? I've quit reading as much this last couple of years. Have you noticed that?
I quit reading about like exactly a year ago.
Yeah, almost me too.
Yeah.
I was trying to think what my favorite poem I've read this year was.
Yeah,
it's
there's
such
nothing.
a hard one.
There's nothing. Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
there's literally nothing. And there are times when I'm meeting someone and they just start talking to me about some releases in the last 1 year, and I'm like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the internet, again, double-edged sword. It's like when you can access so many stories and movies and books, it's like so easy to quit just picking up a random book and trying something new.
My best is sometimes when I really, really need to, when I'm really dependent on outward inspiration in life, or just when it comes to creating art or looking for a caption, right?
Yeah.
I just like go on Goodreads and I just go through some quotes.
Yeah.
You know, and quotes based on a theme that I'm like looking for, right?
Right.
And what I do is I go through all those quotes. Sometimes they're poems too, or just stay with those quotes for a little while. Let's say if I found a sentence, right? So I'm just gonna stay with that sentence for like 30 minutes. I mean, that's still a long time, but just 30 minutes. And when it's like, when I'm just like, when it brings me to that space, that's when I'm like, all right, bye-bye, take care. I'm gonna like, now I'm in that zone where I can create from.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Totally. That makes sense. That's a cool way to approach it.
And otherwise, it's just like, I used to love Rumi's poetry a lot. But then I was like, like that was before I started meditating, and I got like really intensely into what he's talking about. And once I was in that space, I was like, I couldn't appreciate Rumi so much because because there are like a few mystical poets in India and other countries in the East. I mean, they're so incredible that you cannot translate their poetry into a breakup song.
I thought about that. Yeah. For you, unfortunately, I only speak English, but between languages, do you feel there's a way to accurately translate any kind of art that is language based?
Say again?
So if you have a song or a poem or a book, I've always thought about this, but translating from Indian, from whatever language, to English or back, do you feel there's ever a way to accurately translate a feeling?
No, there's no way, dude. Every time you translate something, you must like. All right, if I look at some poetry in Hindi that I really love, by the time I'm translating it, first of all, the way I look at it is if I'm experiencing some poetry, right, that I want to express, that I want to put into words, right? So by the time I'm done writing it or I'm done saying it, I know one thing is for certain, that I've failed, that I've literally failed.
Yeah.
Right? Because whatever I want to express, I can't express it.
Yeah.
It's so inexpressible. And I think that's the same for every artist there is. You would know that since you're working with all of these ET ideas, right?
Yeah.
And human life in the future and in the 80s and how they interacted with future and stuff like that.
Right.
And how you're seeing it in your head and how you're feeling it inside of you. I mean, how you're seeing it, you can probably recreate it. But that feeling itself, you know that you have failed.
Yeah.
Even the greatest artists, I think, the greater they are, the more so they're gonna feel that.
Right.
And then every time you translate it, it loses it.
Would you say that's why photos are so amazing?
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're the only, besides painting, the only way universally to
absolutely
communicate a feeling.
And then our lives in our daily lives, our eyes have become predominant. 80% of everything we know is just through our eyes.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps too.
Right. What's your favorite photograph this year?
All right. Something that I have taken? Or something by
either one. What's the image that has impacted you most in the last year?
In the last 1 year. All right. So this is. I'm just gonna speak about the one image that I took. Right. And I took it about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I went down to Venice Beach with this friend of mine, and I was like, I'm just gonna take some pictures of you, right? Can you dance? Right? And that's what I love. Like if you go through my archives, you have so many pictures of me just dancing on the beach.
Yeah.
Right? And I always have one earpiece in, one out, so that I can be listening to the music and the waves at the same time. And that's what I asked her to do, right?
Yeah.
And So she was just, like she was really close to the waves and she was just dancing. And I have to stand up right now to show you how she was walking, right?
Okay, yeah.
And she didn't realize it, that she was just like walking and she created an infinity sign.
Oh, wow.
She didn't
realize it.
She didn't realize it.
That's great. Yeah.
And the reason that it touches me so much is because ocean is the closest to my soul, right? And it's like every time I'm close to the ocean, I feel like I'm in my mother's womb.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's cool.
That's the feeling that must have been when I was in my mother's womb.
Right.
And then I have this woman, a woman who's absolutely being feminine. She's being so surrendering to these coming waves. And she's dancing, she's embracing existence. And there's an infinity sign there.
Yeah.
It kind of just shows you the circle. And the infinity sign itself could be that endless circle of life and death. And that's how I am looking at it.
It's so cool when art has like when accidental reality meets intent.
Yeah.
Such a cool thing because it's like that actually happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't forced. It was totally organic.
Totally.
But you also captured it.
Yeah.
And then when you present it, you have an idea behind it because of the way it happened. Yeah. That's like one of my favorite interactions between art and reality. That's great.
Yeah. Other than that, if I look at the images created by other artists, I have to say there's this one image by Olivia B. And I think it was shot in Vegas, and she's literally just naked, and she's just like, two images by her actually, and surprisingly she's naked in both. And there's this one right at the window of a hotel in Vegas or something, and there's this one. She's kind of like sitting like a tigress or something on top of a car.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
In the field.
That one's great. Yeah, I know that one.
Dude, I saw that image and I was like,
she's great, man.
She's great, man. Yeah.
No, she has such a wonderful energy in her images.
And then that picture that you posted the other day.
Which one?
And I said I love this so much. I don't remember it right now.
Let's see. The one with the couple in front of the water on the beach. Yeah, that was the one you said.
Yeah, I think that's the one. I loved this so much.
Thank you. I mean, that was a good one to take. I've been playing with the idea of, like you said, when you're gonna kind of break it up and grow. I have this Helios lens where I flip the front element.
Oh yeah. Dude, it's so incredible.
It gives it a texture that feels so otherworldly.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I was walking by the beach and this old couple was in a bench and the sun was going down, but it was like the most bizarre sunset because there was these clouds that created like a almost like a zigzag ripple, and it just felt like so human and so real, but also so surreal.
Yeah, it's actually like it's like a dream. It is like a dream.
That's what it felt like. And yeah, that one came out nice. Thank you. I'm glad you dug it.
No, totally. Like, I haven't seen many images like that this year. And those are usually the kind of, like, whatever I feature on Portbox, that's not what I personally love. I have to be really honest about it.
Yeah. Do you feel bound by the aesthetic of Portbox?
Sometimes. Sometimes. It's so, like, it's really bad. It gets really bad sometimes. Because sometimes I just love an artist so much, and they don't do anything, like when they don't do anything like Portbox.
Right.
There is not a single image on their feed or their website or their portfolio which I can be like, all right, you know what, I love your work, and I'm gonna but I'm gonna feature this image because it goes with what I've been doing.
That's
in the
tough,
last
man.
year.
Yeah, because you got a mood board basically.
Yeah,
it creates a very specific story.
Yeah,
and you're bound by it. It's beautiful, and that Instagram's amazing. And I can't tell you how many images I've pulled from treatments and photographers I found from it. But yeah, I can imagine that gets tiring.
It is. Like sometimes I have seen so much the entire time that I've been working on Portbox, and I started this in like 5 or 6 years ago. Right?
Yeah,
and some days for 10 hours straight, literally on my computer, I'm just going through artists.
Yeah.
I'm just going through pictures. And even then, like, you can imagine the point of saturation I must have hit at some point where it's like, I can't do this anymore.
Oof,
I can't,
that's hard.
I can't keep looking at these images.
Yeah. No,
And
it's tough when art becomes part of the job. Like,
yeah,
when your viewing experience is forced. That's tough, man.
It is. It was really horrible, man. And that's why I'm so glad that for 2 years I quit creating it like altogether. When I started meditating more,
Yeah.
that kind of like brought me back. And even today, because I've seen so much, sometimes an image I'm creating and I know exactly who I'm copying.
Yeah.
I'm not copying them, right? But I know this is what they do.
Right. No?
There are like a few images which are exactly like Ben's work.
True. Yeah.
Like,
but that's kind of what's cool about it, though, right?
Yeah, it is.
There's a dialogue that takes place between artists in photography and cinema that I think is interesting. So.
Yeah, in a way, it's like we don't even realize, like if I look at it from a poetic perspective, I would say that I'm kind of melting into all of these different artists without having even met them.
Yeah.
Right. It's great that I know Ben, that I met him, and I met you, and potentially this conversation is going to translate into my art in one way or another. Right.
Happy to be part of it.
Yeah, for sure, man. But it's just sometimes I have no control over it.
Yeah.
I know the stuff that I want to create, and it's always there. But there are times when I just pull up my phone and then I take a picture, and subconsciously, it's because I have seen that image.
Yeah, no, that's happened to me before too.
Yeah, and I don't appreciate it so much, man. But it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's definitely, I've had mixed feelings. When it feels like you're unoriginal, it's a shitty feeling.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's hard to be original when almost everything's been done, and your influences are going to translate to what you make. So yeah, I think of it as a dialogue. I think that while you and I have a conversation, I might use a phrase that you just used.
Yeah,
because
sure.
we're having a dialogue.
Yeah,
photography and film are the same way. There might be subtle throwbacks or subtle connections because you're connected to another artist in a certain way.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's like, I think that's the best way to say it. Just that conversation's happening.
Yeah, because if you get too in your head about having to be 100% original, you're at a certain point you're never going to feel satisfied with your art.
No.
Not that you should ever feel fully satisfied, but there has to be you have to be at least a little bit okay with the things you create.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right about that, man. But what I care about the most is not about being original for me so much. It's about being honest. It doesn't matter if what I create visually looks similar to something that somebody else has created, right? As long as it's a moment that I experienced, as long as it's a moment that I created, right? And I'm kind of like expressing my soul from that particular moment in my own way.
Right. And
visually, it can look similar. It is bound to look similar. If it's a sunset, it's going to be a fucking sunset.
Right.
Right? But, yeah, it's about as long as I'm being honest to this moment, I'm good.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I like to go for the most part.
Right.
And it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy when I take a picture and I know who I'm inspired by for this shot.
Yeah.
It's like to have the name pop up right away. It gets so crazy, man. I don't like it one bit.
Yeah, but I mean at the same time, like, it's a growing art form. Yeah. There's only so many approaches you can take to an image, and like you said, like for me, music videos, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, and there's going to be crossovers, and end of the day, it's like, I'm serving the song. I'm doing what feels right for the song or for the character of the artist. Yeah. And if there's crossover, it doesn't matter because it's justified in certain ways. In the same way, like cinema, like, you can grab a screenshot from a movie and put it next to an Instagram photographer, and you might say the Instagram photographer, that's a better image. Yeah. But when you take it into the context of the story, the image the cinematographer made for the movie is so powerful because of what surrounds it. And I think the same is true for, when you're talking about accidentally having crossover, it's like you did what needed to happen for that image, and the context is what gives it power or no power. So, if you copy it just because you go out and you say, if you set out to copy it, set out to make something the same, sure, it's going to be hollow. But as long as it has the heart and it's still motivated by what your subject or what your imagery is demanding, I think it's fine. I don't know. But I get it. I feel the same way.
No, I respect that so much, man. I think you just described it in the best possible way. Yeah. And I had a question. Yeah, since we're so you just said that, you know, sometimes your art has to kind of serve those songs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this is something similar to what we talked about the first time we saw each other,
Mm-hmm.
is that how art was in it for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Art was kind of like serving all of the religions in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in today's time, it's literally serving capitalism,
Yeah.
right? What do you think about that? How do you flow between those two things?
Yeah, I mean, commercials are harder for me, man, because of that reason. You know, when you're making a movie, you're serving the story. You have a script, and the story's there, and as a director, you might frame a shot from a character's perspective in a way that you wouldn't frame if it was just a photo you're taking, but you know you're serving the story, and you're serving that character's perspective. Music videos the same way. You have that character perspective, but you also have the song. You might, like for Khalid, for instance, I think that my natural state of photography wouldn't be as glossy and colorful, but it served the song. The song had like a very kind of like vibey, dreamy, colorful nighttime feeling to it. So like I created that imagery. Advertising for me is harder because you're serving a product, which isn't kind of an abstract feeling-based idea. It's something totally different. So I mean, I get it, man. It's tough, and sometimes you get lucky, and there's a commercial that the product is secondary, and they want an experience. But yeah, I mean.
But do you find it funny when they try to make the products have a life?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that's better than having shooting a product that doesn't have a life, because at least you're serving something. But yeah, I had a DP named Jan that shot a video with me. He's German. He had a great thing he said, which is he's always, as a DP, going to serve the story. Sometimes he makes images he doesn't like.
Yeah.
So he chooses the stories that he will give him images he likes. And I think commercials are the same way. If you're serving a brand, you're going to be forced to serve them with what you make.
Yeah.
So the only way to make the art you like is to be very selective about what you choose and try to hope that whatever, brand you're serving for that project is going to have sensibilities that align with your own.
Yeah.
And that's the best you can do. Capitalism is a weird thing. It enables art, and at the same time, it forces you to do things you wouldn't normally do.
It's kind of like a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
it goes both ways.
You get lucky sometimes, though. There are brands that are more about the art than the brand. It's like,
and it's incredible that a lot of these upcoming brands and like all of these independent or small house brands, they essentially are storytellers.
Yeah,
and that's the same with a lot of these independent musicians too.
Mm-hmm.
There's this one, no, not one. There are like a few musicians that I follow along, just kind of like really chill music, and they're essentially storytellers, man.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's the dream, right?
Yeah, that's the dream. Yeah,
interacting with real stories.
Yeah,
because it all boils down to storytelling. Every photo, every piece of art, it's just kind of harkens back to humans trying to interact with humans and share an experience. So if you find a brand that lets you do that, that's great.
But no, as far as cinema is concerned, you're doing an incredible job, man.
Thank you. I'm trying my best, man. Like you said, I'm growing nonstop. Even last year to now, I feel like a totally different director, and I'm hoping that I can keep making stuff that feels more and more honest and more intentional. And there's still going to be those insert shots that are forced, but hopefully less and less as time goes on.
Yeah. For me, like, inserts are the funniest thing. That it's the most remarkable thing there is, because it's really important for the story, but it's just like funny. I don't know why I find it funny. Like I'm actually working on one series just on my iPhone of just insert pictures. Yeah. From what I do. From wherever I go, like the things that I do, just insert shows, nothing. Yeah. And I'm just gonna put it up on my website and be like, oh, cool. Yeah. Dude,
there are directors that are self-aware about that. Like Fincher, he does like there have been like film theorists that'll count the number of close-up inserts he does. And the way he does them, it's like he'll have like one or two a movie, and you don't realize it. But as a viewer, it's like you're used to seeing television where it's like every time they pick something up with their hand, you go to a close up of it, and you have these random inserts. But you can make inserts in art form, man. You can do that.
I'm trying. I'm trying. Let's see.
I'm excited to see it.
I'm no Fincher, but let's see.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. But seriously, man, thank you so much for this dialogue. It's been incredible talking.
Thank you.
Learning so much more about you, man.
Thank you for talking to me.
Seriously,
I hope I wasn't too terrible.
You were incredible, dude. It's just like the videos that you created. It's just like the entire time I was in that world with you.
Good. Well, I hope you enjoyed the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And
There's a lot of teal in this world.
And I honestly cannot wait to see everything else you do this year and every year after that.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm excited to show it. I'm stoked to see what you make as well. It sounds like you're on quite the journey too.
Yeah, it's gonna be something, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
With that, we stop recording. Beautiful. And if you enjoyed the dialogue, we're going to be releasing new stuff every 2 weeks. So stick around, subscribe.